Welcome back to another episode of What Do I Know with me, Joanne Pei, as I continue to dive in to find answers to what I don't know. Now, if you're listening in, maybe you want to head over to the YouTube channel at some point, not now, at some point to check out the gorgeous t-shirts that my guest and I are wearing today. Well, it says Zirap because this podcast is made in partnership with the folks at Zoda Pop by Zirap Media. And because this episode is not a sponsored episode and we got to be very, very budget here, that's why we are wearing the t-shirts because it's free. If you would like to support our podcast, we have links and email addresses that you can write to. It's available in the description. Otherwise, you're just going to continue seeing us wear this boring black Zirap t-shirts. Well, today, my guest is here to teach me something that I am pretty clueless about. And you can tell from that bookshelf over there I've got two books. One is called Money Madness and one is called Bitcoin Money. They are two children's books, and I'm very sure that they'll get me very far in terms of my financial literacy. Well, the folks over at Zoda Pop actually found me an expert, so don't worry about that. I've got with me someone who is able to break down this very complex topic into bite-sized, fun, and I call them like swipe left bits because on that Instagram page it's all about swiping left. My guest today is Ruiming, and he's one half of a two-man team behind a social presence that is fast gathering momentum in this impending economic gloom. The account I'm talking about is the Woke Salaryman. So he's going to be here to tell me a little bit more about investing, finance, and what I need to know. So welcome to the show, Ruiming.
Hey, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and listening to you do that five times. But I'm glad we got it down eventually.
This is hilarious. Well, I'm sweating here as I'm talking to you because I don't really know where to start. Because it is a topic that I really have confessed a few times that I know nothing about, or, well, not very informed. So perhaps let's start with who you are and what you do, because I talk about you being one half, right? So tell us a little bit more about the Woke Salaryman.
Yeah, so Woke Salaryman is like Instagram, Facebook, trying on Twitter, but it's very hard. Telegram, yeah. So I mean, we're just this page in Singapore.
Yeah.
That we try
social presence, I call it.
Okay, this social presence in Singapore that we try to help Singaporeans get like a better relationship with money. So this will be through understanding like simple things like personal finance, investments, maybe even like economic issues, like larger economic issues like inflation, like the world.
And you do it in the form of comics.
Yeah, I think that is our USP, I guess, unique selling point.
Indeed. So you are the writer and you've got another partner in this who is Wei Chun.
Yeah, so he's Wei Chun. He's a very handsome man with long hair. You might have seen him in some other videos.
Yep.
So he draws the stuff. Sometimes he writes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did the two of you come together with this shared vision to want to educate people about money and
Sure,
investing?
I think, so people always think it's like very altruistic. Okay, but truth be told, we started Woke Salaryman because we wanted to earn money off it. Because, any endeavor you make should be sustainable, and money is what, makes things sustainable. So the original idea was to create like a portfolio piece, showing that you could use comics to make a difficult subject interesting. And the difficult subject would be personal finance. The idea was that we approach them and say, hey, look, you know what? We have 25k followers on Instagram. If you want to do something similar with your page, we can get you similar results if you follow like our principles when it comes to content. And then the idea was that we will do that for multiple brands. But I think over time, we just found it was more meaningful and also more sustainable to run it as a page. Then we will accept like sponsored content. So that's how we started.
I mean,
doing Woke Salaryman.
It's always not easy finding a partner who shares the same vision as you. Like, what is this relationship with Wei Chun? I mean, is he like your schoolmate or?
Yeah, so I knew Wei Chun back in 2000 and I'm gonna say 7. We were both in Ngee Ann Poly, so we were in mass comm together. In 2014, I joined Mothership. Mothership.sg.
Yes.
Yep. Then I got Wei Chun on board, and there we worked on a whole bunch of content together. And after that, we both left Mothership, but we still continued to be very passionate about content, and we thought about how to escape the 9 to 5 by creating content that was meaningful and actually could be monetized.
Okay. So this whole preoccupation with money, I found it very interesting. I personally read through your comics, and I like how relatable it is to someone like me, especially because I have like really very bare minimal knowledge about it. And also I went through your website and the FAQ, which says something about you asking people to buy bubble tea and then, that 50% coupon code thing.
Yeah, so I think it also was a disclaimer. So we say
Yes.
like, if we're going to do sponsored content to be sustainable, but if we ever go so far and say like, hey, use this coupon and buy a bubble tea brand, then you should probably cancel us because we have strayed too far from our values.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was the whole idea behind that.
Well, speaking of cancel and the fact that you use the word woke in your handle, previously someone on our show actually used this word woke as well. And then I think I received some feedback about, do you know what it means, the woke, the meaning of woke and all that? Because there is a negative connotation to it. And what I understood of it was obviously quite different from what some other people understood it as. So for the sake of clarity, what do you understand by the word woke, or when you use it for your handle?
So when we use it in our comics, it's supposed to mean like, in the local context. Like, you know how old people say, last time I wish I wake up earlier. I wish I woke up earlier when I was in my 20s. So we use it in that term, but we are aware with multiple meanings of the word that are used worldwide.
So, speaking of being sustainable and profitable to be able to put content out there, I just want to share a little bit about my little endeavor. Because someone has also asked me this before, like on my bio, I wrote dormant entrepreneur, and why do I consider myself a dormant entrepreneur? I have this little side business thing called the Dimple Loft, and for the same reasons, I felt like in order for it to be able to benefit the children, I mean, the whole program is about allowing children to flex their imagination and to be able to tell stories in different forms and using what we understand as filmic arts. So basically what we do in the film industry. And I realized that it was very hard to be sustainable, right? Because in order for it to benefit people, it has got to make money and it's got to be sustainable. So I struggle with this a lot. And that's why I tell myself that until I kind of like get some clarity and meet the right person who can advise me what to do, perhaps it would have to sort of just stay dormant for now. But I'm not killing it because it's like my third baby, So speaking of money, we all seem to be very preoccupied with it. Like we can't do without it, but then we don't want to let it like rule our lives. So tell us like what is a healthy way to develop this relationship with money?
Sure, I think a healthy way to do this is to actually know how much money is actually enough for you. And
how do you know that?
And this varies from like everyone like differently.
Yeah.
So maybe is it sensitive to share like how much you spend a month?
I don't even keep track. That's the thing.
Oh no, that's not good. That's not a good start, I must say.
Okay,
but let's say...
So first step is you got to keep track of what you spend.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
So you should calculate your annual expenditure.
Okay.
That it takes for you to have like a meaningful life or like a fun life, a life that you find acceptable. Of course, if you want, you can reduce the amount it takes for you to be happy.
But people are always not happy, what? Like when I make like when I went from zero and then I make my first $10,000, I'll be like, wow, I made $10,000.
And congrats for making.
And then after that, you're like, wow. Then you make another like 100,000. You're like, wow, you know, 100. And then you know, it's always like never enough.
Do you think it's because people peg their expectations to what society or maybe advertising demands of them? I think what happens in Singapore very often is that we get tied up on what is like the ideal Singaporean life. People want like a 5-room HDB flat in a central location. They want a car, they want 2 kids, they want to go to holidays 4 times a year, maybe to Europe, to Africa. And these are very expensive goals. I find it is that often what is realistic is that you can control what is your dream. I think many people also pursue the new 5 Cs. They pursue it blindly, right?
What is the new 5 C?
I mean, what I just mentioned, like the central condo, 2 kids, holidays, a car. Okay. So they often pursue it because of societal pressure. When people blindly follow a path and then like they pursue it for like 10, 20 years, and end of 20 years they're like, man, I wish I didn't buy all this. But then it's too late already. I think it's often better for people to kind of set what their own goals are when it comes to money. And then ignore what like the greater society thinks and reach those goals like on your own terms. I think on your own terms is something I would stress a lot.
Like you mentioned in Singapore, it's so hard to survive without money and the whole preoccupation with money. And And I think that perhaps it's because of this that has given rise to this whole hustle culture. Like, do you think it's getting a bit toxic?
I think it really depends to the extent that you pursue the hustle. But I do think hustling in some degree is important, because if you do not hustle, there are many people outside Singapore which are competing for the jobs that we have here. At least hustle in a way that allows you to keep up with global competition.
So when we talk about hustle, we are really talking about just working hard,
Yeah.
right? And just sort of, just fighting your way through and working hard. I think the thing behind hustling is also the fact that it should be purposeful.
Yeah, I think you either find it meaningful or you use the hustle to earn money. Imagine you hustle very hard, right? But it doesn't affect your salary. You hustle for what?
I mean, that sucks, if
Yeah.
you work so hard.
And why would we do that? I will only hustle when there are tangible results. Like if I was gonna hustle and earn like more money over the weekend, in addition to my salary, yeah, then I would think like, okay, that's a reason to hustle. But I'm gonna hustle to make it a competition with my friends. And I sleep 6 hours. Then versus someone, I'm better than you. You know what? I slept 4 hours. Haha. I think that's like one of the dumbest competitions.
Maybe the healthier way is to allow yourself some seasons, like seasons for hustling, and then take time off otherwise. Otherwise, you're just like, you're just going to burn out really quick.
True. So I think even the hustle must be sustainable. And I think there'll be a period of time where hard work will no longer be the main driver of your income. Because everyone can work hard in the beginning. But I think over time, through acquisition of new skills and knowledge, you move up the value chain. You start to command more salary. Not because you work more hours, but because the work that you do have become more valuable. Maybe it's about like managing people versus like doing the task yourself.
And I know you also advocate living under your means.
So it's living within your means. I think that's the minimum you should do.
Right.
If you want to accumulate wealth, you should live under your means. So
Okay.
if you live, let's say you come from a middle class family right now. If you live within your means, most likely you will stay in the middle class. But then if you can choose to live under your means, it might help you to kind of go up. Because whatever you didn't spend, you can go invest and build wealth.
Okay.
But you should definitely not spend beyond your means. That's like a straight no-no.
Yeah, but what about you then? What is your ideal, like your Singapore ideal dream life like?
I would like to definitely own a property here. Doesn't need to be central. Somewhere that costs like 500k. I think that'll be fine. And then I would actually love to be able to work 6 months a year and then take the other 6 months off.
Well, you will need a lot of money to do that one, no?
Not necessarily. Why do you think that?
When you take 6 months off, like, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go?
I mean, let's say you can go hiking in the wild.
Like, there's no wild here in Singapore. Everything costs money here.
So you can go overseas.
Yeah, and you're talking about traveling, like...
Actually, traveling doesn't have to be so expensive. So, like, for reference, like, I do this thing called bikepacking. So I cycle with my bicycle across, like, different countries. So I was once in Japan. I spent 3 weeks there. So including the flight tickets, it was 2005. So I did a 86-kilometer hike in Australia. And I think, like, during that period, I realized that actually you don't need a lot of money to be happy. Just walking through the wilderness, seeing new things, seeing new exciting stuff. I think that's an experience in itself. I think many people think traveling is about living in like fancy hotels. The price in the city where we live costs something. So actually, the reason why you feel like money is very important is because of where you are at this point of life. You are in Singapore, which is a highly developed metropolis, which is the economic center of Southeast Asia, which is why you need money to survive.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to give up some comfort, give up some inconvenience, life doesn't need to be expensive.
So instead of saying, okay, let's not have this expectation, right?
Yep.
Lower our expectations so we can live simply, frugally, and happily. But what if we do have this expectation?
Okay, then you make enough money to have that life.
Yeah. So how do you think we can increase our wealth?
So I think the best way to do it, honestly, in my experience, is to get skills that are in demand, right? So you can earn a good salary.
Okay.
This has nothing to do with like working hard, like what people say. You can work as hard as you want in a certain industry, but because the skills are not in demand, people might not pay you well. So the key
Right.
is really earning power. What is more stable and consistent is yourself. You know, work on yourself, get the right skills, and then invest some of that money to get reasonable returns. I'm going to say like 7 to 10% a year is reasonable returns.
Okay.
But most of it will come from you being a member of society where people are willing to pay a lot of money for your skills.
How do you know what would people pay for then?
You can just go on like salary.sg or like Glassdoor and see like what are the most high-paying professions. I think that's one way.
I'm kind of hearing what you're saying now, and it
Yep.
reminds me of one of the comics that was on your account, which
Yep.
was about NBA players.
Yes.
Why do they earn more than,
Let's say soldiers.
soldiers and military men?
Yeah. Basically, the more people can do your job, the less likely you'll be paid highly.
Right.
I think this is very unfortunate because sometimes I also feel it's very unfair. Like there are many professions that are very meaningful, very important, but they are not paid a lot of money. I understand like the feelings of injustice that this arouses.
Yeah.
But the world works like that. At the moment, it's like this, right? Then I mean, you could try to change it, but it will take some time.
Yeah.
Or you could kind of like, okay, this is what it is at the moment. I need to do this to get there. So it's all about, being specific when it comes to your career choices.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about like the influence your parents have on you.
Sure.
Because I've read about them also in your comics.
Yeah. My parents were really frugal, but because they provided like quite a lot of they let me live like a relatively comfortable life. I wouldn't say I was struggling or anything.
Yeah.
So sometimes I took this for granted. Growing up, my dad was not around like a lot of time because he was working overseas. And every time he told me like, this is actually very, very difficult money to earn. I had to go overseas for this. I had to take on risk. I had to go to Myanmar to go and work and stuff. And then I never like, realized that it was a sacrifice.
But I would think that
Yeah.
if they were so like frugal about money and all that, that it would also breed this sort of mindset in you, because that surely did it for me. Like I am very open to say that I have a scarcity mindset. I grew up with this scarcity mindset because my parents are. I mean, my mom is always like, save this, and she would like recycle toilet paper tubes to turn it into pen holders and all that. And of course, that has also taught me the importance of like saving water, saving paper, and reusing and recycling from a very young age. But it has also made me very afraid to lose money and very afraid to invest even, or to donate, even to give, because it's like you must keep, and they come from a really hard time, because like my mom and my dad, both of them, they have a lot of siblings, and they have to fight for food, even like the most basic thing we're talking about, just being full. They don't even get it. Like my mom is always hungry because she has to like pick off, if she's lucky she gets bones, to even like chew on. So I think because of where they came from, they are so frugal about money, and they are so afraid of losing money, that it also sort of made me that way, until like as I became an adult and I started having children and all that, and I start thinking about how to have this mindset of abundance, because they say abundance grows like abundance, right?
Sure.
Then I start to realize that, hey, this is the impact that my childhood had on me. So I guess in this sense, I'm also asking you, like, your parents are so frugal, then has that influenced you in terms of like this mindset that you have, that you're also very frugal? And
Yeah, so I think by the time they had me, they already had like a relatively
big pool of savings.
that they work like extremely hard to get.
Oh.
Not big lah, like sufficient lah. I think they try their best with their limited resources to give their children like a decent childhood. So I really appreciate that about them. So they never really let like the lack mindset like kick in for me and my sister.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I also read somewhere about you being quite angry with your father for a decision that he made. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think when I was 25, my dad just one day came up and said like, next time if I die, I'm not going to give any money to you. And I was very triggered, not because like my dad has a lot of money. He doesn't have a lot of money lah. Yeah, enough for himself and my mom, who needs more money cause she has a stroke. Yeah, but I was very triggered by this, because why would you say this to someone like out of the blue? I mean, if I did something no good, then he say this, then I think it's fair. But this just came out of the blue, And then I remember like looking at my friends who earn like way more money than myself, and had parents who were a lot more privileged. And I thought like, hey, why would you want to disadvantage your
Child.
your child that way? So I actually hung on to this grudge from my dad for like a couple of years until I learned how to manage money myself.
Do you think that sort of spurred you on to, I'm going to have to make my own money. I've got to stand on my own 2 feet.
Yeah, exactly. I think my dad always said this phrase like, oh, you must run on your own steam. You must run on your own steam. And like, it took me very long to
But
understand
it's a struggle, like as a parent, and I think there are also some parents, my listeners are also, some of us are parents, and we, amongst ourselves, we also talk about this, like, do we leave anything for our children? Like, do we provide this safety net for them? Because there's one part of us that obviously we don't want to spoil them. We don't want them to take it for granted and or abuse it for that matter. But on the other hand, we are like, but we want to protect them. We want to give them like a head start. So what do you think as parents? Like, what do you think? What advice would you give? I mean, coming from your own experience as a child receiving this from your father.
Sure. So let me just disclaimer, because people always attack me. They say like I'm possibly privileged or whatever. So I didn't take any money from my parents. Okay. But I do think the best gift they gave to me is that they could look after their own finances. I feel like I started like my financial journey without like having to worry about my parents.
So you're saying that it's okay, I don't leave you anything, but at least I don't have to be your burden.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's good enough, and it's what I received, and I'm very thankful.
Like, have you at any point felt like you didn't get a head start, that you are like way behind your peers who obviously had support, family support, and all that?
I think definitely. I did feel very unhappy when I saw that, but I took pride on the fact that actually I managed to buy this by myself. So I never really felt very salty about it. I mean, I did feel salty, but I never let it like.
Have you seen any
make me very bitter?
Have you seen any like examples of how that what we perceive as a head start that our peers are having actually turn against them?
So in economics, there's this thing called like resource curse. Resource curse is when a country is blessed with like very good like natural resources, but they actually develop like an over reliance on that, and because of that, the economy doesn't develop properly and doesn't prosper. So I think I see the same things with some of my friends. Like they were given the keys to great businesses, but maybe because of like complacency, they just didn't treasure the opportunity, and eventually that went nowhere.
It is also a very conscious decision, especially for families that are more privileged. If they are aware of this, like the fact that I don't want my child to be to abuse this inheritance that they're gonna get, to know how to stand on their own 2 feet and all that, and to withhold that, it's a very conscious and intentional decision, isn't it?
It's easier to say like, oh, we cannot afford this, than like, I do not want to buy this for you.
You had the same gripe against your dad, right? When obviously he had the money for you, but then he's telling you that, no, I'm not going to leave you anything. So how like as a parent, like how do you reconcile that? Like,
I think the previous generation were quite like tough love, I guess.
Yeah, but for us, our generation, like you obviously haven't started a family, but you have intention to do so. Have you thought about it? Like, what are you gonna?
Yeah, so I will do what my dad did, but in a less like Guailan way. Right? I wouldn't say like, I'm not leaving you any money. It's more like, okay, son or girl, I'm not going to be leaving you an inheritance, but this is because I believe this.
I just think it's easier if you don't even let them know that you've got an inheritance.
That's I think that's very difficult to do.
I mean, my parents are very we don't know like how much money our parents have.
Yeah, and isn't there a problem? Like, let's say your parents have like run into financial difficulty, then you don't know like what their savings are. I don't know what insurance plans they have.
Really, like, because I grew up like not knowing like how much money my parents have.
Yeah.
So I don't know otherwise whether or not you are wealthy or not, right? How do you make sure that you don't let your child take this for granted? Like, how do you talk to them about it?
Yeah, I think one way is to really let them know the value of money
How?
through labor, right? I would say like working early would probably make people realize the value of money, like really, really early on.
How young were you when you first started your job?
Okay, so my first job was I think 14 years old. I did one of those like part-time things where you give your number to like some guy and he'll say, hey, we need waiters this weekend. Then I'll just show up and like...
What was it? Were you pushed to do it, or did you want to do it? Or?
I want to do it because like I wanted to buy a Discman, which was
okay.
I think $50.
Okay.
And my parents don't want to buy for me.
Okay.
I was like, whatever, like, I'll go earn my own money. Then I worked the job and I was like, wow, this is rough. So this is what my parents meant and why they have been so stingy with money.
Yeah, earlier on we talked about like the fear of being cancelled and all that. I'm sure it comes from somewhere, right? So where has this fear of being cancelled comes from? Like, have you ever put out some work that received a backlash or something?
I think definitely we put out work all the time that gets backlash all the time.
Like what? Like give me an example.
So for example, I think early on we put out something about the PMD ban. In 2019, I think PMDs were allowed on pavements. You know PMDs?
Yeah.
The very fast, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Singapore government banned them. And then overnight, I think these modes of transportation became illegal to use on pavement.
Okay.
Therefore, like disrupting a lot of delivery riders' lives.
Right.
So we put out something that was kind of like, I think it was titled like the 3 ways to look at a PMD ban. I mean, one, you could complain about it, and then you could try to talk to the MP, but chances are the ban happened because the ban happened. Number 2, you could try to ride a bicycle, try to adapt to the situation, because a bicycle is still a viable form of transport. And then number 3 is kind of like learn skills, because the gig economy or maybe even delivering food might not be viable as a long-term career if you are a young person, like in your 20s or maybe even 30s. I think people were quite furious by the content because they felt it was like really insensitive. Since then, we looked at the content. I think with the benefit of hindsight, we see like, oh no, actually this content could have been worded better. We should not have been so fast to react. Yeah, I think.
So how would you have worded it now?
I think what we did is like we kind of like ranked like the responses. By ranking it, we kind of implied like riding a bicycle was better than complaining, where in fact actually all 3 would have been valid responses, because you can feel angry when your personal transportation is suddenly banned. So I think in hindsight we should approach that with more empathy.
I guess the thing about when we as content creators and you put content out there, I always feel like it is with it comes from a good place.
Yep.
And sometimes we are just limited by what we don't know.
Yep.
Well, hence this podcast, What Do I Know, right? And in not knowing what there is to know, we would therefore say certain things.
Yep.
And we would get responses that could be unexpected, because obviously if we knew this was going to cause an uproar, we're not going to say it this way and piss people off. But obviously we didn't realize that. And I always see it as like a conversation, right?
Yep.
And a chance to learn about what are the different perspectives out there.
Sure.
It shouldn't like cause you to be fearful of what you want to say or what you want to put out there, because there will also be a group of people who agree with your perspective and think that, hey, that's another way to look at it. Like, instead of being so upset about this, maybe I could turn that into something positive as well.
Yeah. So I think I have had like 3 years to prepare for it, because we're doing about 3 years now.
Yeah.
You don't really fully, become immune to it. Although you do get to, control your emotions better. And I mean, it is part of the risk of being a content creator. Every time we put out like a piece of content, there is the possibility that we will upset someone. And I think it's not an easy thing to accept, but I think we have to keep, just saying what we believe in. Because I think not saying what you you believe is probably like the biggest disservice you can do to yourself.
So I think you should just be a bit more like, just say what you think. Don't like worry that you're offending certain segments of the people of the population, because there will be people that you just can't please everyone, right? So I'm sure there are many of us here who want some tips on how to gain more financial literacy and know what to do with our money and how to live the life that we want to, whether it's flying private jets or...
Do you want to fly a private jet?
I always feel very detached from that life. Because I also don't grow up in a privileged family, and like I said, my mom's so frugal. So the whole idea of like private jets and having caviar for breakfast and 7 supercars to choose from is just it's very weird to me, and I don't know how I will be able to be in that environment. Actually, it makes me uncomfortable. So no, I don't look forward to that. The traveling bit, yes. I think the traveling bit is especially now with kids, it's more about wanting to open their minds and for them to see and learn experientially rather than just, I read books and I see, this is how it is. So to be able to afford traveling, on a plane with four of us and going to places and taking that time off would require us to have a certain, financial freedom as well. So I guess... with you right now at this stage, right? Like, do you have any tips for young people, like working adults, how they should, I don't know, portion their money? Like, what should they do? Like, how much should they save? How much should they invest? What should they do with it? Just spend everything?
Sure. I think it really depends
I learned the hard way.
What your financial goals are. Like, I mean, if you want to kind of like lead like the average Singaporean's life, retire at 65, you can follow like the simple like 50-30-20 rule. So you spend 50% of your income on needs, you save 30%, and then you can spend 20% on wants. So I think that's the 50-30-20 rule. If you're trying to be more ambitious, you can do something like save 70% of your income. Of course, that will require you to earn more income, because it's a lot easier to save 70% when you let's say you earn $10,000 compared to if you earn $2,000. But it goes back to what I said earlier. I think focusing on earning power, making like specific career choices to maximize your earning power, that is honestly the best thing you can do.
So you do think that being a delivery person is not like going to be a long-term viable career?
I think it depends on what the delivery rider wants, or what
like the
person,
goals, right?
Yeah,
the goals of the person.
I would say if they want to pursue mainstream goals that most Singaporeans hold dear, it's going to be immensely difficult. And I do know many people want the mainstream goal, which is why we kind of implied, it might not be a long-term thing.
So investment is actually the key for everyone, isn't it?
Investment is important, but earning power is probably more important. If you think about it like wealth as a movie, your earning power would be the hero, the protagonist. And then investment would be like the sidekick that helps the protagonist complete the journey. Many people have this idea that investment is all about like taking $10,000 and making it $1 million. That is very, very unrealistic, especially if it happens within a short span of time. However, given like a period of, let's say, 20 or 30 years, I think that becomes more likely. Because in the short term, the market goes like this, and you never really know like whether 1 week from now it will be up or down. But you do know that historically, the market goes up in the long term.
So it's always but it's an upward trend.
Exactly.
So it's important for all of us to think about investing. And then you mentioned about the earning power is the hero. So does it mean that if I have very strong earning power and I don't know how to invest, that it's okay not to invest?
You can get by. Okay, so for example, let's say you earn 40K a month. Then technically you don't need to invest, but you would have lost some money through inflation. But because the base is so big, because the earning power is so big, so you don't need to invest as much. Yeah. But the bare minimum I feel you should do is, try to keep up with inflation. Because inflation does reduce your spending power over time.
Yeah.
I think smart people will be able to allocate their money to different assets. Maybe it's like stocks, maybe it's property, to actually grow their wealth. even when they are not working, because your labor eventually expires. Right.
Yes.
Like, as much as I hate to say it, like one day you might have to stop acting.
I mean, in every industry, right, you'll have younger, hungrier, and
Yeah.
more energetic people who are there ready to take
Yeah.
over. So therefore, you have to think a bit long term. And that's why also I think since I became a parent and now with kids and all that, that I also start thinking about investment, because I never thought about it before. And I've always been, like I said, very careful with money. I've seen my parents dabble in stocks, and I don't think they did well, but we never talked about it. So I also have no idea. But then because of that also, I guess I've always been very hesitant. But then I realized the importance of investing now, and more than before. And the fact that I read your comic and you explained inflation in a very simple, easy way, I thought that was really good. And actually, in your feed, there's also things about like whether you should buy that car, whether you should rent, or you should invest in property. So I'm sure the listeners would have a better and easy understanding if they go and look at your social media. There's one thing though that you never talked about, also probably because you're not in that stage of your life. But I would also like to seek some advice if you can give, which is talking about money with your partner.
So I think fun fact, I think like money is one of the biggest reasons why people get divorced.
Okay, I had no idea.
Yeah, and it's important to talk about like money upfront. So actually, I've ended some romantic relationships because of money.
Oh,
and because like the values don't align. And I think it's important for the couple to actually like agree, on those values specifically, because you're gonna be, stuck with this person, not stuck like you're gonna be with the person hopefully for a long time. So these things are definitely important to get out of the way.
What are the areas that couples should be talking about when it comes to finances?
Yeah, I think it's like how much how much you might spend on a house. I think house is a big one.
Okay.
Whether or not you'll spend on other big purchases, like I think car is one, marriage is another one, rentals,
weddings lah.
Yeah, I think sometimes when the relationship or the values like don't align, you must be brave enough to be able to walk away from that and not try to force fit it. Even though I get like it's a very painful thing. Like
it is not. I think what you're saying is it's also like it's not the most romantic things to be talking about. Like you said, you have to talk about it because it does filter through in the other areas of your lives when you get together.
Yeah, so I think that is really a pretty hard conversation to have, but I think it's really necessary as well.
Okay. Anything else you think?
I think another thing to consider is to set up like a joint account once you both know you're in it for it like long term, right? You don't need to join finances. I think there are many different ways, but my preferred way is we each have our own finances,
right?
Then we have our own shared goal, then we can put money into that one.
Yeah, because I guess also culturally, right? In some cultures, it's like, okay, the man brings home the bacon and the man gives all his paycheck to the woman and the woman manages the finances. And this could be agreed upon.
Yep.
And if everyone is agreeable to it, then it's cool, right?
Yeah. So there's no right or wrong.
Yes, there's no right.
As long as you agree.
Like you have to talk about it. Like you have to kind of know where you're going with this shared expense, because there will be household expenses that you got to pay for, and groceries. You talk about internet. You talk about like I don't know, like what is that? The electricity bills, internet bills, and all that you have to talk about together, and you have to finance together. And then when you have kids, you've got your like kids insurance and what education funds and all that you have to also kind of pull together as well.
How do you and your partner?
We didn't talk about. We never talked about it.
Oh no, even now.
Yeah,
okay.
and the best thing is like we just went along. We realized, I think it's time we have a joint account because we've got like all these things to pay for. Oh, okay. So how much do we need? Oh, okay. So I like work out the finance and I'm like, I think we each need to put in this amount every month. Oh, okay. And then it's like, it's just like that. And I guess in a way, we're lucky that we are compatible in that sense. Like it didn't come as a shock. Like, huh? Like how come you suddenly want me to put money in the joint account and all that? And we have our accounts separate, and of course I have my own like guilty pleasures, like he has his. So that's why it like we never get upset with each other for the stuff for the purchases that we like to make. So I do think that this is important to get out upfront. Is that also what prenups are about? Like, do you think like we should have like couples should have prenups, and that it would be actually...
I'm not sure whether prenups are enforceable in Singapore.
Oh.
Yeah. From what I am told, and based on my very like sparse legal knowledge, apparently you can do them, but they are not like
Legally binding.
they're not legally binding.
Right.
I think it's better for you to just be very sure of who you're marrying.
Yeah, so that's why I think for a couple, it's very important for communication, like especially if you're talking about getting into like marriage and starting a family together, that this communication is very important. And finances is just one of those things that I realized that, because I realized I never talked about it with my husband. That's why, I thought, hey, maybe it is something that we should talk about. But where do we start? Like, if there was a systematic way that we can start talking about it, it would be most helpful, so that couples don't go into a relationship and just for that. I mean, it's all beautiful at the start,
Like
right?
puppy love and like
It's all beautiful.
all fun and games.
Yeah, it's all beautiful from the start, but then there are very real practical stuff that happens when you build a life together.
Yeah, so I think I can be a bit like unromantic, but like always share like, oh, these are my financial goals. What do you think? And then sometimes, not sometimes, like, I mean, on a few times people have been like, huh, why so strange? But I think it's important to get that out of the way so people know what they are getting into.
Yes, I do think so as well. Is there anything that you wanna like any advice, anything else that I missed out that I didn't ask you that you want to share
About like couples or?
about like finance and investment and money, like financial literacy?
Sure, I think there's a lot of focus in Singapore about the more extreme side of financial literacy, how to pick stocks, how to 10x your income,
Oh, that's so daunting for me.
how to get passive income.
Yeah.
But these are like the sexy things that sell and get a lot of clicks. But actually, these, for most people to be full-time investors, is probably not very possible. So sometimes you hear people saying like, I earn $10,000 a month working from home. You need to consider like, I mean, they just say it right without
Yeah.
any information, just
With
like,
no context.
Yeah. So it's important to not like get sucked into a lot of these like wealth gurus and the promises that they make, because what they're often after is for you to give them money to do their cause.
Yeah.
Actually, what the wealth gurus are actually doing is working on their earning power.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So work on your own earning power. I know I say this like a ridiculous amount of times in this podcast, but I think it's really important. Many people look for investment as a way out of like a very
Like freedom, financial freedom.
Yeah, but there's rarely no substitute for being a member of society that commands sufficient salary.
So to sum it up, I would say, I mean, the best investment you can make is
Is yourself.
yes. And with that, we've come to the end of this episode. Ruiming, maybe you can tell us, where can we find you?
Sure, you can follow us on Instagram. That's the Woke Salaryman. Then you can follow us on Facebook. That's also the Woke Salaryman. You can follow us on Twitter. That is Woke Salaryman without the, because Twitter has like a character limit. You could follow Twitter because we're trying to grow it.
Okay. Thank you so much. And I'm sure you have collected a lot of gems from our conversation. What were some of them? Please share them in the comments below. If you've got any advice for us as well, we'll be most happy to hear them. An audio version of this podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcast. If you like our conversation, please give us a thumbs up and remember to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Well, this is me, Joanne Pei, with my guest, Ruiming, and we're going to bid you goodbye.